Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. When my family ignored my hard work, I threw a celebration that left them speechless. The microphone was warm from the last person who'd used it, and I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips as I stood at the front of the little event room I'd rented by the hour. The lights were slightly too bright, the kind that make everyone look a little tired, and the air smelled like butter, lemon wedges, and that industrial carpet cleaner scent venues never quite get rid of. I had a glass of sparkling water on the podium because I didn't trust my hand with wine. My mum was sitting at the table closest to the front with her jaw tight, my dad staring straight ahead like he'd been forced into detention, and my brother Omar leaned back in his chair with that familiar expression he gets when he thinks something is cringe. Half the room was filled with people I'd chosen. My coworkers, my manager, 2 friends from uni, my neighbor who watered my plants when I was on night shift. The other half was my family and relatives who'd only come because my aunt told them there would be a surprise. Someone's fork clinked against a plate, and the sound felt enormous in the silence. I swallowed, looked down at my note card, and heard my own voice come out steadier than I felt. "Thank you for coming," I said. "I know this is unusual, but I needed to do this." It was 3 weeks earlier when I finally admitted to myself that the ignoring wasn't accidental, it was a habit, and I was the only one still pretending it didn't hurt. I'm 27F, first in my family to finish uni, and I've been working since I was 15, cashier jobs, tutoring, hospital admin, anything that could keep the bills paid and my tuition moving forward. I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm saying it because in my family, hard work is only celebrated if it's convenient. If it's the kind of hard work they can brag about without it challenging their expectations, then it's mashallah, we raised you so well. If it's the kind of hard work that requires them to show up, support me emotionally, or admit I did it without their guidance, then it becomes invisible. Over the last 4 years, I finished my degree while working nights at a private clinic, took extra certifications on weekends, and applied for a competitive training program at a larger hospital. I had this image in my head of telling my parents I'd made it and seeing their faces light up the way they did when Omar got into a local soccer team at 15. I wanted that so badly, it's embarrassing to type out. And when I finally got the acceptance email, the one I'd been refreshing for weeks, I ran to the living room like a kid and called my mum and dad immediately. My mum picked up on the 3rd ring while she was driving. "Yes," she said, already impatient. "I got in," I said, and my voice did that stupid tremble. "Mum, I got into the program. I start in July. It's the one I told you about." There was a pause. A blinker clicking. "Okay," she said. "Good. Listen, can you pick up your cousin Hala from school today? Your aunt is stuck." I just stopped. Like my brain tried to reboot. "Mom," I said, "did you hear me?" "Yes, Habibti," she replied in that tone that means end of conversation. "We'll talk later." My dad was worse. He was watching TV when I told him, and he didn't even turn his head. He said, "Good job," like I told him I'd refilled the water filter. Then he asked if I could help Omar with his resume because you're good with that computer stuff. Omar didn't congratulate me at all. He texted me 2 days later, "Congrats. You still paying Mum's phone bill this month?" That's the level we were at. I tried to be mature about it. I told myself they were stressed. My parents have their own worries. My dad's business has been shaky. My mum is always managing everyone's drama like it's her second job. I told myself, okay, maybe they don't know what this program means. Maybe they don't understand how hard it is to get in. So I invited them. The hospital was doing a small welcome ceremony for new trainees, nothing fancy, but it mattered to me. I sent my parents the details, bought 3 extra tickets, even offered to drive them so they wouldn't get lost. My mum said she'd try. My dad said he'd see. The day came. I was in a new blazer that didn't quite fit right, sweating through my undershirt because I was nervous and the building was overheated. I kept checking my phone like it was going to magically show them parking outside. 20 minutes before the ceremony, my mum texted, "We can't come. Your aunt's engagement party is today. Family comes first. Then, like a cherry on top, she added, take pictures though. I sat in a bathroom stall at the hospital and pressed my forehead against the door because I didn't want to smear my makeup. My hands were shaking in that quiet way they do when you're trying not to cry in public. I remember staring at the pattern on the tile floor and thinking, if I say anything, I'll sound dramatic. If I swallow it, I'll feel smaller. I swallowed it. I took pictures. I sent one photo to my mom anyway. She responded with a thumbs up, then immediately asked if I could send money to my aunt as a gift since I make good money now. That night, my friend Dina came over with takeout and sat on my couch while I stared at my acceptance letter like it was written in another language. Dina asked, did your parents come? I said, no. She waited because Dina is the kind of person who doesn't rush you out of your own feelings. I said, they went to an engagement party. Dina didn't say they're toxic or cut them off. She said, very quietly, do you want to keep doing this thing where you earn their attention like it's a prize? That question made me angry at first. Not at her, at the fact she'd named it. Because it was true. I'd been stacking my achievements like bricks, building this imaginary bridge back to them, and they were standing on the other side acting like I was building a wall. So I got petty. Or maybe I got honest. I can't tell the difference sometimes. I decided that if they refused to celebrate me in private, I would celebrate myself in public. Not in a flashy influencer way. In a very specific way. I would gather the people who had actually watched me do the work, and I would make space for the moment my family kept skipping. I booked a small room at a community venue that normally hosts birthdays and retirement dinners. I spent money I could have put into savings, and yes, I felt sick doing it. I ordered platters from a local caterer because I didn't have the energy to cook for 50 people. I made a simple slideshow, photos of my uni ID, my first clinic badge, my acceptance email, the certificate from my extra training course, this stupid notebook full of night shift study schedules. I printed little cards that said hard work party because I didn't want to pretend it was someone's engagement or baby shower. I invited my coworkers and mentors. I invited my friends. And then, because I wanted to stop playing games with myself, I invited my family too. My mom laughed when she saw the invite. You're throwing a party for yourself? She said like I'd told her I was taking up juggling. Yes, I replied. She sighed dramatically. People will talk, she warned. I said, people already talk. At least let them talk about something true. My dad asked how much it cost. When I answered, he whistled and said, that's a waste. I said, you know what feels like a waste? Working my whole life and having my own family treat it like background noise. He stared at me like I'd spoken in a language he didn't understand. Omar smirked. Main character energy, he said. I almost canceled that day. I'm not kidding. The morning of the party, I stood in my kitchen holding a roll of tape and felt this wave of embarrassment. Like, who throws a party for themselves? People with supportive families don't have to. People with supportive families get a dinner at home and a hug and a we're proud of you that feels real. I had a venue invoice and a mother who said family comes first, while putting me last. Still, I went. I set up the room with Dina and my coworker Jess. Jess brought a bunch of small white flowers from her garden and arranged them in jars. Dina taped a banner crookedly and then fixed it like it mattered because it did. When the first guests arrived, my manager, 2 nurses I've worked with, the older receptionist who used to slip me protein bars during night shifts, I felt my throat tighten in a different way. These people showed up. They hugged me. They asked questions. They said things like, I remember when you were studying on your lunch break. It was such a simple kind of care that it made me realize how starved I'd been for it. Then my family arrived. They came late, of course. My mom walked in first, scanning the room like she was inspecting a house for sale. My dad followed, stiff. Omar walked behind them scrolling on his phone. My aunt and 2 cousins came too, because my mom must have told them there would be food. I watched my mom's eyes land on my coworkers, on my manager, on the small cluster of people smiling at me like I mattered. And I saw her expression change, not into pride, exactly, but into calculation. Like she realized this wasn't just my little private sadness. This was visible. My mum leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Why are these people here?" I whispered back, "Because they supported me." She pressed her lips together like she didn't like the implication. Then she said, louder, "We should sit at the front. Your father and family should be at the front." I didn't answer. I just smiled at a guest and walked away. My hands were sweating so much I had to wipe them on my dress. About 10 minutes before I went up to speak, I overheard Omar talking to my cousin near the drinks table. He didn't see me behind the column. "This is so embarrassing," Omar said. "She's acting like she won an Oscar." My cousin laughed. "At least there's food," she replied. Omar said, "Honestly, I might announce something too. Might as well use the crowd." My stomach dropped. My brain immediately started connecting dots. Omar had been dating a girl for 6 months, and my mum had been making weird comments about big news coming. I pictured him proposing at my party like it was a convenient stage, and I felt something sharp slice through my chest. Not jealousy, something worse. The idea that even here in the one space I'd carved out, they might still take it. I walked into the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I pressed my palms against my knees and tried to breathe quietly. I could hear the muffled chatter outside, the clink of glasses. I thought about canceling the speech. I thought about letting Omar do whatever, and going home and pretending none of it mattered. And then I thought about the acceptance email, the ceremony they skipped, the take pictures though, the thumbs up, the way my dad never looked away from the TV. I came out of that stall and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked too bright. My lips were pressed tight. I looked like someone about to do something irreversible. Then Jess knocked gently on the doorframe and said, "You okay? You're up." I nodded.
"Yeah, I lied."
Then I grabbed my note card, walked back into the room, and took the microphone. I'm going to be honest. I both love and resent my family sometimes in the same breath, and that makes me feel guilty even as I type it. My parents aren't evil villains who sit around plotting my sadness. They're just deeply committed to a hierarchy where daughters are support beams and sons are the house. They think love means sacrifice, and sacrifice means you do what keeps the family looking right. My mom is especially obsessed with appearances. She'd rather I be quietly miserable and respectable than loudly happy and complicated. My dad is the kind of man who thinks providing money is the same thing as providing care, so if I ask for emotional support, he treats it like an unreasonable complaint. Omar has learned to ride that system like a surfboard. He's charming when it benefits him, dismissive when it doesn't, and he's never had to develop empathy because everyone excuses him as just a boy. The reason this hurts isn't because I need constant praise. It's because being ignored by strangers is normal, but being ignored by the people who watched you grow up does something to your sense of worth. At the same time, my friends and coworkers showing up has been the most humbling thing. They didn't have to come. They didn't owe me anything. But they came anyway, and their presence made me realize I'm not asking for too much. I'm asking for the bare minimum, to be seen. If my family can't do that, then I have to stop handing them the power to define what matters. Update. Okay, so I posted the first half of this in my head, basically because I've replayed it 100 times, and a lot of people would probably expect the next part to be me dropping a mic and walking out while my family cries and learns a lesson. It wasn't that cinematic. It was messier and honestly more uncomfortable. When I stood up there with the microphone, I could feel my mum staring at me like she was trying to control me through eye contact. Omar was smirking. My dad looked irritated. And then I looked out at the other faces, Jess smiling at me, Dina with her hands clasped like she was cheering silently, my manager nodding like, "You've got this." That's what steadied me. Not rage. Not revenge. Just the knowledge that I wasn't alone in the room. I started with the safest thing. "I know throwing yourself a celebration is not traditional," I said. A couple people laughed gently, supportive. I continued, but I realized something recently. I've spent a lot of my life waiting for permission to be proud of myself. Waiting for someone else to decide my hard work counts. My mum shifted in her chair. I saw it. The discomfort. I clicked the remote and the first slide came up. Me at 19 in a cheap uniform, standing behind a register with tired eyes. Then a photo of my uni acceptance letter. Then my clinic ID badge. Then a screenshot of my acceptance email for the program. People murmured softly. Jess whispered yes under her breath like she was watching a sports game. I talked about nights I studied in my car between shifts. I talked about failing one exam and taking it again without telling anyone because I didn't want the "I told you so" energy. I talked about learning to do hard things quietly because no one was going to make a big deal out of them. And then I said it. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just plainly. I invited my parents to my welcome ceremony, I said. They didn't come. The room went very still. My mom's face tightened. My dad's eyes snapped to me for the first time that night. Omar's smirk faltered, just for a second, like he didn't expect me to say it out loud. I don't say that to embarrass anyone, I continued, and my voice shook a little, but I kept going. I say it because it was the moment I realized something important. If I keep waiting for certain people to show up, I'm going to miss my own life. My mom made a small noise, like a scoff, like she wanted to interrupt. My aunt leaned toward her and whispered something. My dad's jaw clenched. I shifted the tone quickly before it turned into a fight. I started thanking people. I thanked Jess for covering my shift when I had exams. I thanked Dina for dropping off groceries when I was too exhausted to cook. I thanked my manager for pushing me to apply for the program, even when I doubted myself. As I spoke, I could feel my family sitting there, getting quieter because the more I thanked other people, the more obvious it became who wasn't being thanked. Then came the moment with Omar. I hadn't planned it, but I could feel it coming like a storm in my chest. I said, "And I want to say something to my brother." Omar lifted his eyebrows like he was ready for a compliment. I looked right at him and said, "I hope you never know what it feels like to work that hard and feel invisible in your own home. I wouldn't wish that on you." The room went silent in a way that made my ears ring. Omar's face flushed, and his mouth opened like he wanted to fire back, but he didn't. Maybe because my manager was sitting there. Maybe because my coworkers were watching. Maybe because he suddenly realized he couldn't play the "she's dramatic" card without looking cruel. After the speech, people clapped. Real clapping, not polite. Someone even stood, and then a couple others stood too, and suddenly it was one of those moments where you feel your throat close because you're trying not to cry in front of everyone. I laughed because crying would have made me feel too exposed. I stepped down from the podium, and immediately Dina hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. My mom cornered me near the dessert table 5 minutes later. Her voice was low and sharp. "Why would you say that?" she hissed. "You made us look bad." I stared at her, and for once I didn't flinch. "You made yourselves look bad," I replied quietly. I just stopped covering it. My dad joined, face stern. "We didn't come because we had family obligations," he said like it was a legal defense. "And I'm what?" I asked. "A hobby." He looked genuinely stunned, like the question had never occurred to him. Omar tried to joke it off. "Relax," he said, but his voice was tight. "You got your little moment." That phrase, "little moment," hit me harder than I expected. I felt my eyes sting. I took a breath and said, "It's not little to me." Then, because I wasn't done protecting my own space, I did something that felt almost surreal. I asked them to leave. Not loudly. Not with a scene. I leaned in close to my mom and said, "If you're going to make this about your embarrassment, you should go. I'm not fighting at my own celebration." My mom stared at me like she couldn't believe I'd grown teeth. My dad muttered something under his breath. Omar looked around, saw my coworkers watching, and finally stood up with a forced smile. "All right," he said too loudly. "We'll let you enjoy." They left. My aunt followed, whispering, "We'll talk later." The door clicked shut behind them, and the room felt warmer instantly, like someone had opened a window. I thought I'd feel victorious. I mostly felt shaky. I went back to my table and sat down and stared at the candles like I'd run a marathon and didn't know what to do with my arms. Jess squeezed my hand and said, "That was brave." Dina poured me water and said, Eat something. My manager raised his glass and said, "To hard work." Everyone cheered. And that's when I finally cried, quietly. 2 tears I wiped away fast, because it wasn't sadness exactly. It was relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for years and didn't realize it. After the party, the fallout came. My mom sent a long message about disrespect. My dad didn't speak to me for a week. Omar posted a vague quote about ungrateful people. And then, slowly, something else happened. People in my family started messaging me privately saying things like, "I'm proud of you. And I didn't know they skipped your ceremony. And you're right. You deserve to be celebrated." It wasn't a full apology from my parents, but it was the first crack in the story they'd been telling. This idea that I was just dramatic for wanting to matter. Okay, now I'll finish it. 2 weeks after the party, my dad asked to meet me for coffee. Just him.
No, Mom. No, Omar.
That alone made my stomach flip. We met at a quiet cafe near my parents' place. My dad sat across from me with his hands folded, like he was bracing for impact. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. He cleared his throat and said, "Your mother is very upset." "I know," I replied. He nodded slowly, eyes on the table. "But people talked," he admitted. "Not in a bad way. They said you were doing well." I almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. "Dad," I said softly, "I've been doing well. You just didn't look." His jaw tightened. He swallowed. "We didn't understand," he said finally, and I could tell saying that cost him something. "We thought you were fine. Independent. You don't need us the way Omar needs us." I stared at him. "So, because I'm capable, I don't deserve support?" I asked. He flinched. "That's not what I meant. It's what it felt like," I said. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. "It felt like you only show up for the people who make the most noise." My dad was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Your mother thinks you embarrassed us." I leaned forward slightly. "I didn't embarrass you," I said. "I told the truth. And if the truth makes you look bad, the problem isn't me." He looked up at me then, and his eyes were shiny. He didn't cry, but he looked close. "I am proud of you," he said, rougher than before. I should have said it earlier. The sentence didn't fix everything. It didn't erase years of being overlooked. But it landed. It landed in my chest like a weight shifting. "What about Mom?" I asked. He sighed. "She needs time," he said. "She is stubborn." I nodded because so am I. "I'm not apologizing for celebrating myself," I said. "But I'm willing to talk if she can talk without trying to make me small." My dad nodded slowly, like he understood the terms even if he didn't like them. A few days later, my mom showed up at my door. I almost didn't open it. I did anyway because curiosity is one of my weaknesses. She stood there holding a container of lentil soup like a peace offering and a weapon at the same time. "I made this," she said stiffly. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat at my kitchen table. The soup smelled like home. My mom looked around my apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. Her eyes landed on the framed certificate from my program acceptance that Dina had gifted me after the party. My mom's mouth tightened. "I did not know it was so important," she said finally, quietly. I blinked. "I told you," I replied. She winced. "Yes," she admitted. "But I did not listen." That was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from her. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't dramatic. It was clumsy and late, like someone trying to speak a language they never learned. "I'm not doing this to punish you," I said softly. "I just needed to stop disappearing." My mum stared at her hands. Then she whispered, "I don't want to lose you." "Then don't," I said. "But you can't keep acting like my life is an accessory to Omar's." She didn't answer right away. She just sat there, breathing shallowly, like she was deciding whether she could tolerate a new version of me. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "You embarrassed me," she said. I nodded. "I know," I replied. "And you hurt me." Silence. Then she pushed the soup toward me. Eat, she said, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a command. It felt like a bridge. Omar still hasn't apologized. He's been polite, distant, acting like none of it happened. Maybe he'll grow up. Maybe he won't. But the difference now is this. I'm not waiting for his approval. I'm not building my life around being noticed by people who only look when it benefits them. I threw that celebration because I was tired of quietly achieving things and pretending it didn't matter. And even if my family never becomes the supportive movie version family I used to daydream about, I proved something to myself that night. I can create the kind of room I need to stand in. My mom is exhausting in the way only a loving but controlling parent can be. She's not cruel because she enjoys cruelty. She's cruel because she thinks discomfort is an acceptable price for obedience. Her biggest flaw is that she treats reputation like a real living thing that needs to be fed daily, even if feeding it costs a relationship with her daughter. She deserved to feel embarrassed, honestly, because embarrassment is sometimes the only emotion that breaks denial. My dad is quieter but not innocent. His passivity has been a choice for years. He's the type to call himself peaceful while letting the loudest person set the rules. But I'll give him this. When he finally sat across from me and admitted he didn't look, that was a real crack in his pride, and it mattered. Omar is the person I have the least patience for. He didn't just ignore me. He mocked me for wanting to be seen. That little moment comment is the kind of casual cruelty that reveals a lot. He likes the family system because it hands him importance without requiring maturity, and he's going to keep benefiting until someone forces him to grow up. If he ever becomes decent, it'll start with him admitting he's been coasting on entitlement. Dina, Jess, and my coworkers are the reason this story didn't end with me shrinking back into silence. They didn't save me with speeches. They just showed up, food, flowers, hands on my shoulders, steady eye contact. That kind of support rewires you. And me? I'm proud of myself for doing something that felt embarrassing, but was actually necessary. People love to call women attention-seeking when we stop suffering quietly. But here's the thing, wanting acknowledgement for hard work isn't vanity. It's human. If my family had celebrated me the way they should have, I wouldn't have needed to rent a room and hold a microphone to feel real. The fact that I did it anyway, despite the guilt and fear, and the instinct to make myself small, is the part that makes me smile when I think back on it. They were speechless because I stopped playing my role. And once you stop playing your role, everyone else has to face what they've been getting away with. That's uncomfortable.
Good.